Huh? We will be in Luke chapter 12, verses 13 all the way through 34. So while you're turning to Luke chapter 12, back in the 1800s, there was once a 350-pound wrestler in Europe named Yusuf, the Terrible Turk. 350 pounds is fairly a huge man, and there wasn't an ounce of flab on the man. He was formidable. And in his 4 years in Europe, he was impossible to beat, holding the undisputed title as champion there. Then in 1898, he sailed to America. Watch out. And challenged the undefeated U.S. champion to a match, a man named Strangler Lewis. Now, Strangler was apparently about my size. Well, this guy here, weighing it in just a little over 200 pounds. So really about my size. But despite many men much larger than himself, Strangler's secret was a very simple hold. He would get around behind his opponent, put his massive arm around their neck, and cut off their oxygen. Thus, the name Strangler. When his opponents passed out, he'd pin them and win the match. But when Strangler met Yusuf, he faced a problem. Yusuf didn't have a neck. One commentator noted that Yusuf's body went from his head to his massive shoulders with very little in between. Thus, Strangler Lewis couldn't get his hold, and it wasn't long that Yusuf flipped Lewis to the mat and pinned him. After winning the championship, the Terrible Turk demanded all $5,000, a fairly significant amount of money back in 1898, to be paid to him in gold. He wrapped the championship belt around his waist, stuffed his gold into the belt, and boarded the next ship back to Europe. But halfway across the Atlantic, a storm struck, and the ship began to sink. When Yusuf attempted to get into a lifeboat, he fell into the water and disappeared beneath the waves and never to be seen again. So what do you think happened to Yusuf? That's right. His wealth was too much for the mighty man, and he collapsed from it all. He died and he drowned. So today we're going to talk a little bit about greed and worry. Two words that I don't like either one of. Because, we've all been greedy at times, and we've all worried, and we all still worry. So I'm going to go ahead and start reading Luke chapter 12, verses 13 through 34. And one of the company said unto him, Master, speak to my brother, that he divide the inheritance with me. And he said unto him, Man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? And he said unto them, Take heed, and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of things which he possesseth. And he spake a parable unto them, saying, The ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully, and he thought within himself, saying, What shall I do? Because I have no room where to bestow my fruits. And he said, This will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there will I bestow all my fruits and my goods. And I will say to my soul, Soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said unto him, Thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee. Then whose shall those things be which thou hast provided? So is he that layeth up treasure for himself, and is not rich toward God. And he said unto his disciples, Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat, neither for the body, what ye shall put on. The life is more than meat, and the body is more than raiment. Consider the ravens, for they neither sow nor reap, which neither have storehouse nor barn, and God feedeth them. How much more are ye better than the fowls? And which of you, with taking thought, can add to his stature 1 cubit? And if ye then be not able to do that thing which is least, Why take ye thought for the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They toil not, they spin not, and yet I say unto you that Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so cloth the grass, which is today in the field, and tomorrow is cast into the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O ye of little faith? And seek not ye what ye shall eat, or what ye shall drink, neither be ye of doubtful mind. For all these things do the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knoweth that ye have need of these things. But rather seek ye the kingdom of God, and all the things shall be added unto you. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell that ye have, and give alms. Provide yourselves bags which wax not old, a treasure in the heavens that faileth not, where no thief approacheth, neither moth corrupteth. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Dear Jesus, I do pray that you can open our hearts and open our minds and give us that freedom that we really do want in each one of our lives. In Jesus' precious name, amen. Right here on number 1, Jesus was not impressed. Jesus was not impressed with their greed. You know, many people don't ever get enough. It's never enough. People are greedy. Jim was in there talking this morning that he wasn't going to vote because he didn't feel that if you vote for one, the other one still sins too. But if you don't vote, what are you doing? What message are you sending? His belief was that if Christians didn't vote for either one of them and voted for Jesus Christ, because there's no such thing as a perfect man or woman in this world. It's almost like that's another sense of being greedy because you think there's a perfect person that can be your leader. Man is not perfect. Right here with this here, when we look into these scriptures, Jesus is telling them, quit being so daggone greedy. If your storehouses ain't big enough, give some of it to the poor. If you got to have big, huge warehouse to store everything you got, are you using it? No. Jesus don't want us to hoard. We watch American Pickers a lot. I love the show. I think it's funny. I like to see all the neat old things. But you know what? Some of them people are hoarders. One man on there said it was his poor man's 401k. Well, I'm sorry. If you're going to auctions all the time buying this stuff, you could have been putting that money somewhere else and making more. Because what if a tornado comes and just takes out that whole building? Most of them don't have none of it insured. Some of it's even getting ruined. Wouldn't it have been better to get souls saved than to keep storing up more and more and more? I mean, that's something to be thinking about. Number 2, greed is a terrible thing. Greed is a terrible thing. Now, got a little thing here for you. Our story today is centered about a man whose inheritance threatened to destroy him, as well as he and his brother were arguing over that inheritance, and he interrupted Jesus' ministry, asking the Savior to intercede in this legal matter. You know, Jesus had to intercede in several things. One thing I think really ticked Jesus off was greed. When he went into that courtyard and those money changers were in there selling stuff and doing all kinds of stuff, he was mad. That was basically defiling his father's house, is what it was. And that's where you were to go and praise and worship God. But people get greedy. And I'm sorry, all these big, fancy, multi-million-dollar churches are unnecessary. You can build a lot cheaper than millions of dollars. I'm sorry, I've been in construction. Jerry knows just as well. You can build a lot cheaper. You don't have to be so fancy, but Got a little story here. My mother told of the trouble that took place in her family when her dad had died. Her 3 brothers worked together to squeeze Mom and my aunt out of their share of the inheritance. In fact, their older brother, a leader in the church in town, ended up buying the farm for a song. Now, why would her brothers do that to their sisters? Why would that godly brother steal the farm for himself? Why? There's a lot of greedy people in this world. You know what? You can sit here and be greedy here on earth and get everything you want, rob, steal, suck away from your family and friends and other people on here. That's going to be your rewards, because when you go up there, I guarantee you, when you're bowed down before God, He's going to say, you got your rewards already, move along. Anything that you do in works are probably going to be wiped out, because if you do it, all that stuff for greed, I guarantee it's going to be wiping out a lot of that stuff that you've been doing. If you're sitting there, Gabe, turn around. If you sit there and be greedy and you suck away from people, enjoy your rewards. You know you're doing it. If you're doing it, you're going to end up paying the price. Because I don't care if you come over here and here, let me give some to missions or do this. That's going to be all for naught, because you're not going to be getting all them rewards. I guarantee it. He's going to be saying, oh, the greed thing. Let's erase this and this. They got all their rewards. Let's see. He did all this with that money. That's his rewards. So we got to be careful when we get to be greedy. If we start doing that, number one, it gets to be a habit. Once you've done it once, the next time it's not so bad. Oh, I'm not really doing anything wrong. I deserve. Off the state. I deserve this. You know, it's like all the commercials we watch. Yeah. I deserve it. Yeah. That's getting into people's brains, and that makes greed just a little bit easier, because you know what? We can justify to ourselves why we're doing it. You know, man, I've worked hard all my life. It's mine, right? So, you know, heck with him. I do that every time too. Number 3, amongst the top 10 of just about any list in Scripture of sin is greed. I hate greed. I've seen so much greed in my life, I don't care to see it. I honestly have. I've seen a lot, all different types of greed, not only just money, just greed. Greed eats people up. It puts them into such a tailspin, they cannot have a relationship. I don't know how you can have a relationship if you're getting so greedy. There's no way you could have a relationship with God. It's going to interfere in everything in your life. And you know what? We've all seen in years past, inheritance is the most greedy thing there is in the world. Because, you know, if somebody wants to do something fairly, and you know, okay, like my 3 kids, we say, okay, each 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. That's it. Period. That's right. That's fair, and that would be their inheritance. But then you start saying, no, I think Laura needs 40%. Let's give 30 to Gabe, 35 to Gabe, and Izzy, we'll just give you what's left. What does that cause? What would that cause in your family? Be causing fights, wouldn't it? And it's not really, it's not getting greedy for Izzy to come up and say, well, how is that right? She gets more, he gets a little more than me, I get the waste. That's why when you take care of people, or if you're going to do something for people, try to do it as equal as you possibly can. If you've got goods, have them sold, then the money divided equally. That way you don't have to worry about having people come in and say, oh, hold it, the candle, this one's going to be mine. Let me put my name on the back.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've seen people buy gifts, put the name on it, for that way when they die, they can get it back.
Yeah.
That's greed. I mean, come on. You buy something for somebody, you give it away, you don't expect, oh, hold it, in 20 years they're going to die. I want that. You know, give me a break. I've seen too many people. I know one lady that does that.
Yeah.
And I've heard of others doing it. So, we need to get away from doing that, maybe. That's getting, greedy. Or, the greed thing can get so bad. You go gift shopping for somebody, but you never give it to them because you just can't part with it. I'm honest. I knew a lady that bought toys and stuff for some kids and grandkids, not you, and had them back in the closet and in the room. Oh, I bought that 3 years ago for so-and-so. Well, 3 years ago, why didn't you give it up? Because you know what? We're so greedy with our own selves, we can't give it up. Greed sometimes just tends to eat people up, and you know what it does? It puts that wedge right there between you and God. Because right there, you're worried so much about what I'm going to get. The heck with the world. Laura. Number 4. Jesus condemned the wealthy man not because of his wealth, but because he wasn't rich toward God. That's the thing. We've got to give our riches, which is ourselves, and our time and our hearts to God, and quit worrying about wealth all the time, because, if we start worrying about the wealth, that's where our hearts go. Just like Jesus said, where the heart is, where your treasure is. Come on. So we got to be very careful at what we do with that. Then we think of my hero, David. He was wealthy. My gosh, can anybody have over 1,000 wives and concubines and be poor? I mean, we've got, one wife? And look, guys, they suck us dry. No, I'm joking, ladies. You guys don't suck us dry. Our ladies are good. But could you imagine having 1,000 or more, the expense of that? That's getting a little greedy, because you can't even spend one day with each of them in a year. So there's no quality time. So that's getting a little on the greedy side. So David, I will say, was a little on the greedy side, even though he was a man after God's own heart. So number 5, greed is the belief that if I only get enough money, I can be safe and secure. You know how many times we've heard that? You see advertisements for investment companies that say that all the time. And that's, you're never going to save enough. There's always going to be something. Greed is the belief that if I only get enough money, I can be safe and secure. We think money is going to be the answer to every one of our little problems and answers, and money's not. Number 6. But we do worry too often. We let worry run our lives. How many times do we worry ourselves to where we don't sleep? A lot of times we do that. I've worried off and on through the years all the time about money, not having enough. It's stupid. If I just stopped and said, God's going to take care of me no matter what, why should I worry all the time? Because if I worry about that, what do? I'm not conversating with God about anything other than, God, come on now. Wallet's getting emptier here. We need some more money. The account's like, come on, God, let's do this. You remember growing up, and you had one parent that you could always go and get a few bucks from if you needed some for something, like a sundae or something. I used to go to Goodrich Dairy and get a hot fudge sundae or a peanut butter sundae all the time. Never could get a dime out of my stepdad. He was always too proud. My mom was the softie. I could go to my mom and get 50 cents from her, and not a problem. And if that didn't work, I'd go across the street to my friend's mom, and she'd give me the money and go up there. So, see, I knew how to work the moms into getting what I wanted, because I was greedy. I wanted that sundae. And you know what? Between me and my friend Jim, we probably had a sundae about every day. I kid you not. We'd go up there at least once a day, and if we had to get milk for them, they didn't get the change back. Because when they came out with the hot peanut butter sundaes. It's like having melted, it was better than melted peanut butter. It was like hot fudge, but melted peanut butter. And it was like a little nuts sprinkled on top. It was the bomb. So I was greedy. But you know what? Loved every minute of it because you know what? I got my treat every day too. Number 7. Greed and worry can make us so worldly that it ruins our lives. Greed and worry can just, like they say with the white hairs, the gray and whites, they say gray, but that's a sign of worrying. So if we look out here today, who do we see that is the most worrisome person? I'm just picking on you, Rudy, only because you got the whiter hair. I got a lot of white in here too, buddy. Don't think about that. Got an illustration. Greg Nettle told about the Christmas his 7-year-old daughter Tabitha received the SpongeBob SquarePants version of the Game of Life. As they played the game, Tabitha thought the person who reached the finish line was the winner. But then Greg read the instructions, and the rules literally say, at the end of the game, the winner is the person with the greatest net worth. Not the person who crosses the finish line first, not the person who helped the most people, not the person who gave the most away. The winner is the person who accumulates the most wealth. Wow. That's a game to teach people right there. And that's what most people in life think. They need more and more and more. Got to do better than what they're doing. Greed is a disease. Worrying is a disease too. It's hard to shake them two. When we start to have greedy feelings or tendencies, we need to stop and pray. When we start worrying about all these crazy things or worrying about people, stop and pray and just throw it out there. Just say, you know what? It's not going to control and lead my life. Because that's what happens to us too many times. Number 8. Jesus is saying to us, are you tempted by worry? Are you tempted by greed? Then sell your possessions and give it to the poor. If you're tempted by all those things, the worry and the greed, just sell the stuff and get rid of it. Because once you don't have it, then you won't worry about it. Then you won't covet it anymore. Dr. Carl Menninger once asked a very wealthy patient, what on earth are you going to do with all your money? The patient replied, a bit reluctantly, just worry about it, I suppose. Well, Menninger went on, do you get that much pleasure out of worrying about it? No, replied the patient, but I get such terror when I think of giving some of it to somebody else. That's the problem with a lot of people. They don't want to give it to somebody else, but they don't want nothing to do with it. They ain't doing nothing with it. There's a lot of people that got a lot of money, and they try to figure out what ways they can blow it on things that can please them here. So you got to remember that. Last one, I promise. All right. And I need somebody here. Gabe. Okay. I'm a thief. If I come up here and I make this disappear, how do you feel when somebody just steal it from you? Yeah. Why would you get mad? But why would you get mad, Gabe? It's just a possession. Maybe I needed it and maybe you didn't. No, the point is, a lot of times people will come to you and they'll steal things out of your life because they're greedy. We see thieves stealing stuff all the time, all over. You read about the burglaries in Memphis and the break-ins and all this stuff in every city and town. Why are they doing it? That stuff that, the item doesn't belong to them. People get upset. Yeah, you pay hard-earned money for things. And it's not you feeling guilty or greedy. It's just some of those things you do need. But a thief will come and steal that, and it's a type of greed. Because when we actually look at it, that thief violates you. That's what greed and worrying does to your life. It's like a thief coming up and stealing something from you, because now it's got you so distracted and focused on that, you can't focus on God anymore. And so we got to really look at that. When we sit there and see the things that go on and go bad, we need to really stop and pray. Because we need to let Jesus Christ lead our lives, not the greed, not the worry. Because I'm a worrier too. I worry all the time about different things and stupid things. And you know what? You can keep getting back into that trap. I was doing good for a while, and then you can get worried again, and you can get into that trap. But then you need to say, no, stop. Jesus, this is all yours. I can't control it. I will do what I can, but whatever the outcome is, I'll be just as happy. And I got to always remember that, because I got to remember that for myself, because I tend to get into worry mode all different times. And we got to quit doing that, because it's just it just interferes with our relationship, and that's all we're going to do. And that is it, folks.